Let's start now with our top story. The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres says Pakistan's hosting of millions of Afghan refugees has been recognized as a global model. Addressing the International Refugees Conference in Islamabad, Guterres said international support has been minimum in alleviating the burden of millions of refugees in Pakistan. The UN chief said supporting Pakistan in this regard is not a sign of solidarity, but in the world's own best interests. Speaking at the conference, Prime Minister Imran Khan said Pakistan has hosted these refugees despite economic challenges. Khan said Muslim refugees around the world are suffering due to Islamophobia. Bringing Guterres' attention to India's human rights violations in occupied Kashmir, Khan said unless the world acts definitively, the situation will get worse by the day. In his speech, the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, Filippo Grandi, said Pakistan has paid a heavy price for being the largest host of refugees in the world. Grandi has also said this burden has not been equitably shared by the world, and international support for this mammoth task has been woefully insufficient. Afghanistan is the source of one of the largest refugee populations in the world today. Now, for the past 40 years, most of this burden has been borne by Pakistan. As Afghan leaders and senior UN officials meet in Islamabad to discuss a solution to the problem, refugees have expressed their doubts about the peace process. But they still say they want to return to their homeland. More in this report.
A short drive away from the Serena Hotel in Islamabad, with top officials from the UN and Kabul are discussing the future of Afghan refugees, 20-year-old Ahmad Khan Yunus lives in a makeshift settlement. He was born in Pakistan to Afghan parents, but still dreams of returning to his true home one day.
It will be very good if peace returns to our country, if a truce is made with the Taliban and stability returns to our land. Then we can go from here to our country. We want to study there. We want to spend happy, peaceful lives there.
With the US-Taliban peace deal imminent, finding a solution to the refugee problem has never been more important. Many refugees say they would be willing to return to their home country even if the Taliban return to power.
It's all right if the Taliban return. They are Muslims, they are our brothers. They don't do anything illegal, they follow Islamic law.
Refugees complain they have little say in today's discussions and have their doubts about the Afghan peace process. Nonetheless, they still hope for a better future.
It is my wish and hope and my desire that peace and harmony should return, but it seems very difficult that it will happen in Afghanistan. But we do have hopes that reconciliation will occur, and God willing, it will happen.
The influx of refugees into Pakistan began with the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan in 1979. There are approximately 2.7 million of them living in Pakistan today.
Gunmen have killed 22 people, including 14 children, in Cameroon. The UN said unknown armed men carried out the bloodshed in the village of Notumbo in the northwest region. The UN said a pregnant woman and several children under the ages of 5 and 18 are among those killed. Separatists in the region have been fighting the central government for 3 years. The conflict between Anglophone forces seeking to break away from Cameroon has claimed over 3,000 lives. Opposition parties are blaming the country's army for the massacre. Yemen's government coalition says it has killed 18 Houthi rebels in the northern province of Al Jouf. State media said the armed rebels were shot dead as they attempted to infiltrate a military zone. This came as the UN has confirmed Yemen's warring sides have agreed to implement a major prisoner swap. In a statement, the UN envoy to Yemen, Martin Griffiths, said both sides will immediately begin exchanging prisoner lists for the release. The announcement follows after 7 days of meetings in Amman between Houthi rebels and the internationally recognized government. Yemen has been beset by violence and chaos since 2014, when Houthis overran much of the country, including the capital Sana'a. Turkey claims the Kurdistan Workers' Party has killed 3 people in a car bomb attack in northern Syria. The defense ministry said 5 people were wounded in the blast in the Tel Abyad district. The ministry said the perpetrator was captured alive, along with another terrorist who came to the area for a second attack. It said the PKK continues to kill innocent civilians in the country. The town of Tel Abyad has been held by Turkish forces and Syrian proxies since Ankara launched a military operation against Kurdish militia last October. The Syrian government says it has seized most of Aleppo province as they advance their campaign to recapture Idlib. Witnesses say the forces took control of 29 villages and small towns in the north and northwest of Aleppo city. State media said the government army units were pushing further to advance around the city. It said the drive aims to bolster security in Syria's second largest city of Aleppo. Last week, Syrian forces seized control of the strategic M5 highway, which connects the capital Damascus to Aleppo. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump has expressed concern over the situation in Idlib. In a phone call with the Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan, Trump said he would like to see Russia ceasing its support for the Syrian government. Qatar says talks to resolve the regional conflict between Doha and Riyadh have stalled despite diplomatic efforts. Foreign Minister Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al Thani was speaking at the Munich Security Conference. He said Doha has been open to dialogue since the start of the GCC crisis. The minister said Qatar is not the perpetrator of the crisis and is open to any genuine intention to resolve the issue. Saudi Arabia, along with its allies, the UAE, Bahrain and Egypt, have accused Doha of backing radical militants. Those states cut all diplomatic, trade and transport ties with Qatar in June 2017. In China, meanwhile, 105 more people have died over the past 24 hours from the new coronavirus, putting the death toll at nearly 1,800. The National Health Commission says over 70,000 have been infected across the country, with 2,048 new cases emerging. More in this report.
As the Chinese government scrambles to contain the coronavirus outbreak, restrictions have been further tightened in Hubei province. Elsewhere, Americans have begun to disembark a cruise ship quarantined in the Japanese port of Yokohama. People entering the United States will be kept in quarantine for 14 days. The World Health Organization says China has done a great job dealing with the crisis.
The world truly appreciates that, and we appreciate the bravery and courage of your health workers who have demonstrated extraordinary professionalism in the face of a dangerous virus.
Showing their confidence the risk is passing, multinational companies such as L'Oreal and Toyota Boshoku are reopening their facilities.
Other employees in Shanghai are active to return to work. In addition, most of our 50 Japanese workers are in Shanghai. We believe we should go through this difficult time with China together.
The disease is now present in at least 28 other countries, with nearly 700 infections and 5 deaths outside mainland China.
Well, as we just said, in virus at China, authorities continue to limit public activities in an effort to contain the novel coronavirus. Now, this has turned online fitness classes into the latest trend as people try to stay in shape.
Zhang Huaya owns a successful high-end gym in Beijing, but has faced a severe financial setback because of the virus outbreak. Faced with the prospect of shutting their business down, she turned to giving classes online.
For the gyms that have high rent, it's a big hit. 1/10 of our annual income is gone. But I'm a positive person, and on the positive side, if people cultivated the habit of doing online fitness and were willing to pay for it, there might be another kind of income in the future.
Huaya's business move paid off, and appointments for her online classes are completely booked. Our clients say since they're cooped up in their homes, this is the only way they can get any exercise.
Before the outbreak, I was playing sports every day. I gained a lot of weight after giving birth to my child, but I have high demands for myself. During the outbreak, I can't go to the gym or train outside. So, I follow some trainers online and exercise at home.
The new coronavirus, thought to have emerged in a wildlife market in Wuhan City, has presented a huge challenge to the world's second largest economy.
In other news, Sri Lanka has summoned the U.S. ambassador in Colombo to protest the blacklisting of its army chief. In a statement, the Foreign Minister Dinesh Gunawardena formally conveyed the Sri Lankan government's reservations to U.S. envoy Elena Taplitz, and he asked Washington to review its decision. Gunawardena said there was no proven allegations of human rights violations against Army Chief Lieutenant General Shavendra Silva. The minister said this action unnecessarily complicates ties between the U.S. and Sri Lanka. Responding, Ambassador Taplitz said she would convey the concerns of the Sri Lankan government to Washington. Earlier, the U.S. government imposed sanctions on Sri Lanka's army chief for alleged human rights abuses. In a show of strength, Venezuela's military is holding exercises around the country involving civilian militias and armored vehicles. The move is seen as a show of defiance against the U.S., with Washington escalating sanctions against the country. The exercise was launched days after President Nicolas Maduro formally incorporated the civilian reserve into the military. This is a group of 4 million volunteers with limited military training. Civilian members of the ruling Socialist Party wearing red shirts also joined the exercise as lookouts. President Maduro accuses Washington of planning to invade Venezuela. The U.S. has put sanctions against Maduro's government, calling for the armed forces to turn against him. The 56th Munich Security Conference has ended without a consensus on Westlessness, the theme of this year's summit. Divided on issues from Libya to Venezuela and even the EU's future, Western leaders failed to speak with one voice on many issues.
Leaders and diplomats from Europe, Middle East and the US arrived in Munich for a 3-day summit to shore up commitments and help coordinate Western defense policies. German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier accused Washington, China and Russia of stoking global mistrust and insecurity with a great powers competition threatening new nuclear arms race. German President also took a swipe at US President, noting Washington under the present administration rejects the idea of an international community.
And our closest ally, the United States of America, under the present administration itself, rejects the idea of an international community. As if an attitude, each man for himself, could already be world politics. As if everyone was taken care of when everyone only cares for themselves. Great again, even at the expense of neighbors and partners.
China ist im Zuge eines
French president said Europe can't continue to be a junior partner to USA and called for greater sovereignty and freedom for Europe. President Emmanuel Macron said Europe is becoming a continent that doesn't believe in its future and highlighted disagreements with allies.
Je le crois très profondément.
If we have no freedom to act, then we have no credibility in foreign policy, and we can't be a junior partner to the United States of America. Because sometimes we have disagreements that we have to accept. On Iran, we have disagreements. If we haven't found financial or economic and military sovereignty, then we can't have a proper foreign policy.
À taux d'intérêt bas ou quasi nul.
The conference concluded with security experts noting West's carelessness towards Sahel region until it causes migrant exodus towards EU countries.
I'll be back after this break with plenty more news. Stay tuned. Let's begin this segment of the Bulletin in France, where Health Minister Agnès Buzyn has announced her resignation and run for the mayor of Paris. Her decision comes after the previous ruling party candidate, Benjamin Griveaux, pulled out over a sexting scandal. Speaking in Paris, Buzyn said she is running for the job with commitment and determination. The minister said she worked and raised her children in Paris, so she understands the city's problems. Buzyn said she is running to improve the quality and daily life of Parisians. She explained her resignation, saying being a government minister requires full commitment. The elections will be held in March. 6 people have been killed and over 100 affected after a toxic gas leaked in Pakistan's city of Karachi. The leak is suspected from a cargo ship at the city's Kemar jetty while offloading chemicals. but the Ministry of Maritime says rumors involving leakage from ships or containers are premature. The Federal Minister for Maritime Affairs, Ali Zaidi, said the Navy's Nuclear Biological Chemical Damage Team is investigating the incident. The minister said the situation is under control and a final report will be shared once the probe is complete. The NGO End Acid Violence says there were 42 acid attacks in Uganda during 2018, but the country's police have only recorded 4 such cases during that year, suggesting the majority of attacks are unrecorded.
The NGO End Acid Violence Uganda recorded 42 new attacks in 2018. The youngest victim was just 10 months old. Other horrifying cases include 2 sisters, aged 3 and 5. But the country's official police records show only 4 cases in that year. Most attacks do not get reported or processed, either due to fears of reprisal or because victims are too focused on mere survival and recovery. Lynette Girunji, who herself is a victim of an acid attack, emphasizes the need for a specific law.
The first policy we want to include there is a non-bail policy for us, the perpetrators. These people shouldn't be bailed out. And we need the sentence to be clear.
According to UK-based NGO ActionAid, women are more often the target of acid attacks than men. It is thought that this has to do with the importance attributed in society to women's physical appearance, a means of controlling their bodies. Jennifer was attacked by a colleague in a fit of jealousy over her successful business.
You cannot walk. Every time you are home, you have to be in bedroom. You fear people to see you. If people seeing you, it's fear you. And you are crying because of the way you have pain and you're looking bad.
Acid attack victims agree legislation needs to be changed. Now these attacks are categorized under the catch-all of assault. If found guilty, some of the perpetrators walk out of the prison before the victim even leaves the hospital treatment.
In the Russian village of Makarye near Moscow, a granny has turned 2 tons of plastic bottle caps into wall mosaics. She is decorating the walls of her home and recycling refuse from the village at the same time. More on that now in this report.
One man's trash is another man's treasure. This is Nina Krinitsina's motto. She has used 2 tons of used bottle caps to turn her village house into an art gallery.
It calms me down, settles my nerves, especially when I was making mosaics of beans. I used to use tea beans at first and later switched over to caps. Anytime I am free, I rush to make a mosaic.
Since 2013, Krinitsina has created dozens of mosaics, some of which use over 1,000 bottle tops. Over 30 of her pieces surrounding her home are inspired by Russian fairy tales and classic Soviet cartoons.
I started making mosaics with this kitty. The kitty, then the dog, then Mashenka, a girl character, then the bear. So bit by bit, looking for schemes for artworks on the internet. When I noticed something interesting on the internet with the help of my nephew, I composed a picture.
She collects materials at a nearby landfill and used daily donations from neighbors to support her hobby.
Neighbors bring me caps, but nowadays there are waste bins in our village and everybody throws everything in there. They used to throw everything to a waste site. I did not hesitate to go to the waste site to collect caps, and neighbors would bring some, and nowadays
Christina hopes her art will encourage others to start their own projects for the good of the environment.
The French foreign minister has warned the UK it could face a bloody battle in Brexit trade talks with the EU. Jean-Yves Le Drian said it will be tough to achieve Britain's aim of agreeing a deal by the end of the year. The foreign minister said there are many issues and difficulties to deal with. France and other countries want to continue fishing in British waters, but London wants full autonomy and limited access for European fishermen. The UK formally left the EU 2 weeks ago, but still trades like a member under the transition period. The remaining 27 EU states are currently working on a mandate for the talks on the future relationship. Stock markets in the Asia-Pacific region are trading mixed as investors continue to assess the potential economic fallout from the new coronavirus killing over 1,700 people. The Shanghai Composite is trading nearly 2% higher after China's central bank pumped over $14 billion into the financial system. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index gains over 0.5%. The Nikkei 225 is trading over 0.5% lower amid slow economic growth. Time now to find out what the weather is like around the world.